Hello, good morning, and welcome to Optimum Derby. My name is Martin Crowson. I'm joined today by the MD of Optimum, Tom Healy. Morning, Tom.
Morning, how are we, mate?
Yeah, we're all right, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Today's topic is going to be about warm-ups and what to do at the top of the slopes, or maybe at the bottom of the slopes before you even get on a lift, to properly prepare your body and your mind for a skiing holiday and some testing slopes that may lie ahead of you. If you are watching us on LinkedIn today, you're very welcome. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and be the first to know when we're back live again in the future. And this is the fourth of 5 skiing specials we've been doing, so please check out the other ones we've done already in the weeks before. But let's crack on, Tom. We're at the resort. We need to get ready for our first slope of the holiday. We're very excited, but we need to warm up. Where should we be doing that for starters?
I think there's probably 2 options, really. There's 2 options. You could warm up in the hotel / chalet, wherever your accommodation is.
Yeah.
Or you could warm up on the slope. So top of the slope, bottom of the slope, depends on sort of what you're getting on first. If you're getting on a big gondola, more likely obviously at the top once you've got off. But that first point you put your skis on. The chalet is good because you've got loads of space and you've probably not got your boots on, so you can move around, do whatever stretches and warm-up routine you like, which is really useful.
Those stretches still hold you in good stead if you've then got half an hour before your first run, Tom?
That's the big problem. That's the big problem. So I think you've probably got 2 routines. You've probably got a morning routine that you do that's your almost normal mobility routine. If you know you've always got stiff hips, if you know you've always got tight hamstrings, that's the sort of stuff I'd do at home.
Okay.
And do that before you set off, because that's your normal little routine that you would always need to do.
Yeah.
And then your skiing specific warm-up, I would do at the top of the hill. So that's the first time you put your skis on. So if that's go up a big gondola, get to the top, and before you clip in, then go and do your little routine up there.
Right. Okay, got you. Let's start with, I guess, stretching, I suppose, which is one of the things that comes to mind for most people when they're ready to go down a ski slope. What's the best way to get the blood flowing and to get all your muscles stretched to the right extent?
Yeah, I think, again, you've kind of got a couple of little philosophies or little ideas to think about. I would think probably the first one is to try and just move. So we try and get the blood flowing. Then we'll probably do some mobility type work and then go into almost like some dynamic exercises. So some squats and things like that. And I think if you were to follow like a little 5-minute, it doesn't need to be long, 5 or 6 minute routine, just to kind of get going would be great. So I would start with almost like jogging on the spot. Or something similar to that, and then it's a matter of going through some specific exercises, which we'll go on in a minute, and some specific stretches, and in that order as well. So almost blood flowing, get moving, and then do some specific little exercises that are relevant to skiing, or this could be relevant to another sport as well.
Okay, talk us through those then, Tom.
So the first one I would almost do.
Let's assume we do some running on the spot, and we've got the blood flowing, things are moving.
Yeah, running on the spot. And then I think probably the easiest thing to do is because you're going to have your boots on at this point. So for me, when I've always done this in the past, we've normally done it at the side of the slope where we've got the availability of a warm-up area when we're competing. But I think for when I've been away in terms of holidays and things like that, the easiest place to do it is with your skis, with your boots on at the top of the lift. So you've got to imagine your boots are on. You've not got loads of mobility. It's not that easy to move around. They're clunky, bit awkward to move around in. So I think for me, the couple of first things I would do is almost the first one would just be balancing on the spot. So standing still, balance on the spot, and just raise one leg off the floor. And you've got to imagine that boot's going to be on, and you're going to be in this slide.
Yeah, you're locked, aren't you? Yeah.
So holding this position, and then I would move the other leg. Okay, so the first thing I would do is just some swings. Just up and down, and then a few across your body, which you might need to pair up or hold a little fence to do, just if you need someone there to help you balance. So that would be forwards, side to side, backwards, so almost going into like an RDL, sort of like bending the hips and coming into this position, and then similar sort of thing, but out to the side. Okay, so there's the 4 ones I would do to begin with. Okay. And they're almost all about trying to move the hips and get the hips and joints going whilst balancing on one leg.
Yeah,
I would ordinarily do between 8 and 10 of those movements on each side. Then I would look at doing, because obviously you've still got to imagine your boots are on. So you're almost into that position there. where you flex knees. Now, again, you might need someone to hold or someone to support, and then almost just push up into the boots and do a little calf raise. Okay. So starting to get the calves working. Obviously, you're activating your quads as you're holding that sort of squat position.
Yeah.
And then the other ones I would do a hinge. So bum up, lean forward. So pelvis starts to come forward, chest comes down, come into that sort of angle. And then the last one, some squats. And then some single leg squats.
Yeah.
On one leg. They're the ones I would probably do at the top of the hill on every day. The things that you would do maybe back at the hotel or back at the chalet would be your generic routine that you would like to do based on previous issues or lower back problems or whatever it may be. Your specific skiing stuff, I would look at doing things like that. And I would probably repeat that through a couple of times. So do your leg swings, 8 to 10, a couple of times through. Do your calf raises, your squats, and those sorts of hinging patterns. And again, do 8 to 10 of those and then repeat those a couple of times. And if you can, do them on single leg. So do them double leg first time and then single leg the second time.
Okay. Is it easier to do those sort of stretches, Tom? Because watching you do those, I know the feeling of your boot is completely locked. So you've actually got somebody almost holding your feet down whilst you're doing those sort of things, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And almost, if you think your warm up needs to be preparing you for the sport that you're about, or the event that you're about to do. And in this case, obviously, skiing has got a lot of squatting actions in there and some hinging, so where you lean forward from the hips and your chest sort of comes close to the floor. And despite it sounding probably a little bit odd, despite your boots locking your ankle in place, there's a lot of calf work in there as well. So kind of holding that position for a long period of time is really useful. So no, they are, and you can always unstrap your boot. So if you need it tighter to give you a bit more balance, you could always ratchet your boots up, or you could unratchet your boots and leave them loose to do the exercise and the warm-ups, and then strap it all up, put your skis on, off you go.
Okay.
And again, considering that, like, you consider your first couple of runs as almost your warm-up. And I know some resorts, you may ski 100 meters to the first lift. So you've done all your warm up and then you ski another 100 meters and then you get on a lift and sit on that for 2 or 3 minutes and get cold again.
Yeah.
You may just need to just quickly go through that little routine again at the top, or even just wait until you get to the very, very top of the mountain before you have to do your full warm up.
Yeah. Worth saying at this point, for those of you who joined us for the first time, that Tom works for British Ski and Snowboard, and particularly with the British Moguls team who are preparing for the next Winter Olympics. So any advice is coming from a position of authority, that's for sure. If you've got any questions while we're talking today, please pop them on the comments section and we'll do our best to answer them before the end of the broadcast. Or if it's after the broadcast, please stick them in the comments section and we'll get back to you. Tom, I appreciate all the warm-up details there and at the top of the slope, but having been skiing before, I'm sure people are aware that as soon as you get off that first lift, you are absolutely desperate to get down that first slope. So what can you say to me to make me take those 5 minutes to one side to do all those things before I get going? What's the importance of it?
Oh, I think for a couple of things. I think the enjoyment factor of being able to ski for longer throughout the day. So it will mean that you've warmed up properly, the blood will be flowing properly, and the joints and muscles and areas that need to be sort of fueled are fueled properly. And that means you can ski for longer and also more comfortably and be able to do the things that you want to do, rather than going in pretty cold, maybe a little bit stiff, and then trying to put your first couple of turns in and thinking, oh, why can't I do this today? Yeah, I could do it yesterday. So yeah, from an enjoyment factor, and obviously then that has a risk reduction in terms of injuries as well. So helps to reduce the risk of injuries, and ski for longer really.
Okay. Let's move on to things like core and balance, because they're, just as important as warming your muscles up and getting the important muscles ready for action. Can you give us any tips on how to engage your core and make sure that your balance is as good as it can be for a sport that really does need a lot of balance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think prior to a ski trip, if you can get on something called a Bosu ball, and that's one of
the little half balls.
Yeah, half sort of like Swiss ball, so it'll look a little bit like that.
Yeah,
something like that is great. You can do both ways up. So you could do the dome side up, or you could do the flat side up. I quite like to do the flat side, and then balance on there and do some stability exercises. Even just getting used to standing on there is great. You've got to think that the surface that you're skiing on is never pristine and smooth and flat. So if you can get used to being able to absorb those little bumps and those little offsets of snow, then you'll put you in really good stead for your skiing trip.
Okay. Yeah. Mentally, I know, the guys that you work with are heading for Olympic medals, so the mental prep is a really important part of their day-to-day routine. What about for just beginners and amateurs like myself who, go once a year, maybe, hopefully, and it's still important to be in the right headspace, isn't it, when you get to the top of that first slope?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really funny actually working with the skiers. They've all got slightly different routines, and sort of over the last year or so working with them, I've kind of got used to what they like and what they don't like, and when to bother them and when not to bother them. So, give you an example. One of them skis with her headphones in almost all the time, and will never give you any eye contact. Will never. If she's listening, she'll know who she is. She'll never give you any eye contact. She'll never look at you, but she'll just kind of nod, and then I know she's ready to go. And that's it. That's it. There's nothing else.
Right. So she got music on.
Sorry?
With music on?
Yeah, music on. Yeah, anything. All sorts of music on. And then one of the other guys, he'll ski and have no music on, but he kind of chats and chills and messes about with his boots and fiddles with things at the top of the slopes and just kind of make sure everything ready, really. And then he's ready to go. So he's got a little funny, bit like a Rafa Nadal routine where he does the same sorts of things every time, like does this and does that, and then fastens this and then attaches that, and then off he goes and he's ready. But I think for sort of skiing on a holiday or skiing on a trip, I think the first couple of things I would always say, like we talked about earlier, was make sure you know where you're going.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got a piste map. Yeah. And make sure your phone works, because there's going to be patches of areas throughout the slopes where your phone might not work through just the mountains and the signal. So again, if that's the case, you've got a location point where you know where to meet. So if you get lost, you miss people, you lose people, there's a coffee shop or there's a specific lift or something like that where, if I can just get to there, I know the other people are going to be at the top of that lift. Yeah. And be prepared for any conditions. That the mountains can change and the weather can change real quickly. It can get really foggy and you lose track of sort of what's snow and what's cloud, and that can be quite unerring, really. You've got no sort of reference markers to pick up trees or poles or anything to gauge as to how fast you're going as well sometimes, which is also puts you off a little bit. So just be prepared for that. And I think another thing in that sense, I've always tried to follow sort of the poles. So if I know it's really heavy conditions and it's very cloudy or very sort of snow and snowy and it all looks the same, if you know you're on the right run and you just keep the poles on your left-hand side and they're always on your left-hand side, you're on the run. Okay. If you go to the poles then all of a sudden end up on your right-hand side, yet you've been able to see them, then all of a sudden they're on the right-hand side, then you might not be on the run anymore. Yeah. Simple things like that where you just need to keep track of those sorts of things. And also use the numbers. So most of the pieces will have numbers on them from the top of the run, and it might be start at number 20 and then obviously work its way down to number 1. And they've also normally got the name of the run on. So if you're on Chamonix Red, and it's number 22, then you can count the numbers down every couple of poles to the bottom to guide you back in. But yeah, most of the time I would just say some simple stuff. Make sure you've got a piste map, make sure you know where you're going, and make sure your phone works, or you've got a way of meeting up with people if your phone doesn't work. Again, another 5 minutes of prep that could really be very useful at some stages on your trip. Yeah, really easy. And that can be done in a cable car. It can be done in a cable car. It can be done over a coffee in the morning, just planning where you're going for the day, what route you're going to take, and if we get lost, or we'll stop here for lunch, and if you lose us, just meet us here for lunch. Really simple. Yeah, really simple. Okay, finally, let's move on to nutrition. Again, really interesting to get your take on what the guys that are part of the British team actually do and what they need. And then for the rest of us, again, it's a given we're going to have a few drinks at night. It's a given we might have a fry up every so often. But what else can you help us with and advise, to make sure we get in as well as all that other stuff? Yeah. Again, like there's a few factors as well. Obviously, you've got sort of altitude to play a part. So reduced oxygen, which obviously plays a part over about 2,000 meters. And you've got things like the cold, the temperature, and you're working. So you're physically working quite hard. and the temperature is pretty cold. So they're all calorie sapping concerns, I suppose. So generally speaking, morning, have a pretty calorific breakfast, which is a good thing for a lot of people to hear. So if that's a nice big sort of omelette with some French stick or bread or something to go with it, and then maybe that might be a yogurt or some fruit, and maybe even just stick a croissant in your pocket and have that on the first lift with a coffee.
Okay.
You're pretty well on your way there to a good day in terms of cruising around. And take snacks, like have a banana, have some chocolate, have some bits in your pocket that you can quickly open that don't kind of go everywhere. Anticipate the chocolate's going to go hard and frozen, so put it somewhere where it will keep it warmish. And take a hot drink. So take a flask, a small flask, hot chocolate, coffee, even tea, whatever really, just as a nice little warm up during the day, and also gives you a bit of an energy boost throughout the day. And then throughout the day, obviously quite carb and quite calorific. So pastas, and obviously in the evening, a good solid meal with a couple of beers, really, for the general public. And then we're very similar with the ski team, other than minus the beers. It's not too different, really. It's not too different.
What are you going to say, including the beers, then? That was
we might have a few. We might have a few. But no, it's generally pretty much the same. The routine or the pattern doesn't change loads. Eggs for breakfast, not too heavy in terms of dairy, but maybe a small yogurt or something similar. And then a similar sort of pattern through the day. Yeah,
I guess it's a good sport for that, because you really must burn so many calories doing what you do. You know, you're active, you're busy, you're wrapped up warm as well. It must. Nice to hear that. Thanks, Tom.
And again, just look at the conditions. If you know it's going to be super cold, just take a flask with you. If you know it's a nice sort of bluebird day and it's maybe going to be 2 or 3 degrees and it's not too cold, you might not need a hot chocolate or coffee. But on those cold days, it's just nice to kind of even get your hands around and just warm you up.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Tom. That's fantastic. Thanks very much for your time, as always. Much appreciated. As I said, we're on the 4th of 5 skiing specials at the moment. We've done some other ones, so please check out the YouTube channel when you get a second for episodes like this one, which focused in on knee injuries, which is a particular concern to lots of skiers. We've also got all sorts of YouTube videos describing all sorts of injuries and how to avoid them, and then also how to work your way back from them. So have a look at the rest of the YouTube channel. There's one that's quite prevalent for skiers there. Causes treatment and prevention of sciatica. So please have a look when you get a second. Otherwise, please subscribe to our channel if you've not already on YouTube. If you're on LinkedIn, thanks so much for joining us today. We'll be back next week with the final one in our skiing series entitled "Does Your Equipment Really Matter?" So Tom will be taking an expert look at some of the things that he's learned over his years involved with the British team and passing them on, so that's not one to miss. That just leaves me, Martin Croson, say thanks again to Tom Healy. If you've got any issues and you want to get in touch with Tom, please have a look at the website for starters to find out what Optimum Derby offer, and then you can always get in touch with Tom at the email address which is on the bottom of the screen right now. That is me, Martin Croson, say thanks again for joining us. We'll see you soon again here on Optimum Derby Live. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.